fascinating to look at the entire creative evolution of an artist, how they started and where they are now. Of course, looking at what's been going on in their life can feel, a little bit invasive and voyeuristic, like prying into the inner sanctum of life, but, all in the name of research. Music and art, to me, and I'm by no means an expert, often feels subjective, and open to interpretation. And honestly, for me, I love it when I'm challenged to think about, what it means to me, which kind of brings me on to relatability. And perhaps it's now an overused word that's been, perhaps diluted of its relevance and meaning, certainly of its meaning a little bit. But is it important? Is it important for an artist to create work that its audience will find relatable in some way? Will it help the audience make their own interpretations if they can relate to it? Or is speaking with truth and honesty equally or more important? And what about good old-fashioned escapism? What does that connection between the artist and the audience look like? I don't know why the work of my guest today sort of makes me ask these questions, but it sort of does. Maybe it's because his work often feels like it's accessing what's in the back of his mind, but created in a way that feeds my own interpretation and connects in a way that, perhaps tunes into, my own empathy. His art was described, I once read, as loose and raw, that straight away imprints itself on the human imagination. And I think that's really interesting because, it's the sort of consistency of that rawness and honesty that also runs through his music, which again gets my, imagination fired up. Anyway, enough of my bullshit. Let's get on and introduce the wonderful artist and musician James Johnston. James, great to see you again.
Hi, all right. Thanks for having me on.
So I've got to say, sort of, first of all, thanks to sort of Carl Bielik for inviting me to your World of Interiors exhibition, which was like a few weeks ago in Fitzrovia, which is where we met.
Yeah. I've known Carl for a while, and through his band, through
Lark, yeah.
He came to the last exhibition as well, and at one point I was going to do some overdubs for him for something, and then it didn't happen or whatever, but he used some of the artwork I sent him for his last record, actually. But so we met at the in the gallery. It was at Fitzrovia Gallery for a couple of weeks, and it was I don't know, a year's worth of painting I'd done when I wasn't on tour.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I popped around again, I remember you'd started painting in the gallery. You painted on some like small, kind of postcard size canvas, I guess, which I remember you saying was like a bit of a departure for you.
Well, it only in as much as normally I'd much rather shut myself in a room to do anything like that.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I sod it, get over yourself and just see what happens. So I started painting originally on tour with a little tiny kit that I had that I put together. I mean, I didn't even know what to use initially or anything. It was just I had no conception of any aptitude or whatever. I just went into an art shop and said, I want to paint some little pictures. What should I use? I haven't got a clue. Should it use pastels? Do I use paint? Whatever. And so I bought a small kit of everything, and then just tried it out, and just immediately became sort of quite obsessed with it and just doing it on a daily basis. And that was sort of the same kit that I was using in the studio. I mean, I've got it down to a fine art now of what I actually need if I'm away. And so I took it into the gallery and started painting in there. And then after a while, I just forgot that there were people in the room, and I'd just be painting away, and it's fine, really. And so I was doing a sort of set of small stuff about that big. for a show in Oslo at the Schaefer's Gate 5 gallery that's in the last week of August. So yeah, I'm putting together sort of a set of stuff I can stick in a suitcase and take over there.
And take over there. That's amazing. What was it that, I mean, was it when you said, you usually sort of lock yourself in put yourself in the studio and so, I mean, is that to sort of, so people aren't watching what you're doing?
Yeah, I don't know, even talking to someone while I'm painting, I don't know, I can't, or having the radio on, if it's, any sort of talk radio, I wouldn't be able to do it, or any contemporary music that had any reference or relevance to anything I'd done. So I always just have classical music on Radio 3, a BBC one, on really quiet, just have that in the background. And it's, I mean, in order to sort of paint the way I do, you have to be able to sort of like completely switch off in order to switch on, sort of thing. So to focus in that way, that you're apart from your normal sort of sets of rights and wrongs and worries and anxieties, and it's partly an escape from that. That's probably why I like it so much. But you just a way to detach yourself completely. So normally, I mean, the studio I've got, luckily, is one with a physical door on it. So I always, first thing I do, I just walk in there, lock the door, turn the radio on, and every day from about 10 till 6, just go in there, do that straight away, and just start immediately. I'll either look around and see if I've run out of canvases. I'm so impatient. I'd just look at something and think, oh, is that any good? Oh, Christ. And I'd sort of have 3 criteria that would be, is it soulful? Is it beautiful in some way? Or is it funny? And, if it's got none of those, if it's something I just landed and, oh, thank God it's an image, but it's not got that, I just take it down and change it, and then immediately turn it into something else, or turn it upside down or whatever. But I go over stuff and over and over and over, and some paintings will have like 10 pictures underneath, and but they all somehow inform what goes on next, just because of the mix of colors or the texture of the thing, the thickness of the thing, and there's a real gratification with taking something you've spent ages working on and just destroying it, which you can't go back to an album and think, great, that song's fucking shit, I'm going to destroy it and just put a hole right in the middle of it and just cover it in feedback or whatever it might be. So maybe after years of frustration with that to go back to stuff, I just love doing that.
I mean, it must be, it's weird, isn't it? How at one point of your life that kind of what you put on a canvas doesn't kind of speak to you, doesn't do it. But perhaps that if you went back to it, kind of 5 years later.
Absolutely. I mean, there's some, like on. I don't really look back at what I've done unless something like social media suddenly throws up something from 5 years ago. And I was thinking, that's, when I was concerned with one aspect of painting, something more imaginative was happening in another way, or you just don't remember even making the thing, at all. Remember nothing. I work so much that often something will come up and I had really pretty little recollection of, where I did it, how I did it, or certainly not how I did it. I mean, that seems to be a constant sort of mystery.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, it sounds like you sort of, once you sort of lock the door and sort of put the radio on, that's you sort of completely immersed.
Yeah, totally. And, I don't go back out. I don't go out for lunch. I just can keep going. Like I have to.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just enjoy it so much, and again,
Yeah.
like in comparison with music, with having to wait for everything in order to just get this hour's release of excitement and like explosion of noise.
Yeah.
You're able to just do it constantly and just get in there and go. And I love that. So, I can't, I find it really wasteful to not just constantly be enjoying it.
I guess if you have that impatience, in you, that yeah, when you say it like that, the music the process of creating a record,
Christ almighty.
even a solo record is
It's
still so.
studios, and you think, I know what this needs. Just please, just let me make this bit of noise here. And there's all this tweaking and like, oh, cry. And by the time you get to do it, oh well, the moment's gone. I can't even remember. It's just not
Yeah.
exciting anymore. Whereas like it's almost like painting is almost like sort of dangerous driving in that everything you do affects something else, and you're just constantly or playing live or something. Everything you change affects the whole. So you're lost in this sense of state of concentration without almost sort of like devoid of a bigger picture of it, just working on this thing, and then occasionally stop and think, what am I doing? And then back in, like coming up for air for a second.
I guess I've found, with my life as well, that I'm like when I was a kid, I was really shy as a kid. Just
Yeah.
wanted to kind of blend in and fit in, and anytime there's any attention on me, I hated it. It probably sort of comes from like because I'm an only child, and I always felt, from my mum and dad, like the spotlight was on me, and I just like just used to drive me nuts, and so that immediacy of I suppose kind of getting things out, just doing it and getting it out, and then you sort of move on to something else can be.
Yeah, I mean, it's like almost like you're disappearing.
Yeah,
You are invisible while you do it, and the more successful the painting is, the less you see of yourself in it in a way, and it's almost like
yeah,
someone else had done it, or all this. There's so much chance happening in there, and you're accessing all a million things you've seen over the last 48 hours or whatever, and you almost don't recognize where these things are coming from. So the pictures I enjoy looking at that I've done myself, the ones I enjoy the most, the ones where I can't really see my hand in it, or anything overworked, or it's all got a sort of urgency to it.
Mm. I think I had some kind of thoughts on the art and sort of what it made me feel, and it is similar to some of the music that you've produced. I guess sort of particularly with sort of Gallon Drunk, but it sort of veers from, and this is like my interpretation. So I mean, I'll always like use that caveat in case I completely embarrass myself, but like kind of veers from like the mundane through to a kind of underbelly of life, if you will, with that there's a sort of dark humor and perhaps some surrealism in there as well.
I think it's sort of I don't know, I'm either trying to make myself laugh in the studio or something. I certainly do, but often it's a way that you can't really do so much, well, you can, but I couldn't do so much in music, was use humor in that way to sort of leaven the darkness of
Yeah,
you've accidentally created this thing that might be a accessing something that's referencing something quite tragic, say, but
yeah,
with a just, and then after sort of painting away at it, it just feels like, if you just to make it, you're talking about accessibility, just a tiny bit of humor in it, even possibly just for myself to bear looking at the bloody thing, but to just makes it a way in for the viewer, be it me or anyone. You know, you might initially look at an image and it's just, is that, is it not? You know, and I don't know, it just makes it more, yeah, it gives you a way in.
What do I mean? I mean, some of the stuff that I was talking about in the, you know, in the intro about relatability, and I was just sort of really conscious that particularly sort of became this sort of buzzword. I remember during COVID, and I always thought that it was really important that there should be in whatever we do, there should be some way to kind of relate to it. But then like everybody started using it, and it kind of started to get diluted, you know, and sort of like lose its meaning somewhat. But you know, kind of like relatability between, you know, kind of what an artist is producing, you know, either kind of painting or producing music. I mean, what's your view on that?
Do you mean through the actual finished thing,
Yeah, yeah.
or the way it's presented? Or, I mean, certainly now, obviously, the way you can present something in a more relatable way through social media, or what, I mean, I don't even have a website. I just put everything on Instagram, and to show the size of a picture, I'll hold it, you know, so people know what the studio looks like, and that aspect of mystery sort of isn't there. But
True.
It's if you're selling paintings through pictures on Instagram, so much trust is involved.
That's true. You know? Yeah.
I like the fact that it's totally one-on-one like that.
Yeah.
That it's much more personal, and people feel that they do know, you know, they write to you, and yet the painting could still be quite mysterious, you know.
Yeah.
And it needs, again, they're at their best when there is something unexplained about it or mysterious about it. It's not fully spelt out. It's like part of a story or a snapshot of something, or it's unexplained. It's an open-ended sort of narrative. It's because the act of painting them is sometimes I find it almost like just watching a film. It's like you're tracing what's in your mind. You're just constantly imagining what you'd be seeing, and just doing it, and then you have this static image, but of, they're more relatable if they are more open, because obviously you bring your own thing to it, don't you? So
yeah. I know these are probably kind of theoretical. I was sort of thinking about relatability. And I saw some people like saying about escapism. It's like, I don't need to relate to, you know, to the artist, you know, to the musician. I don't need to relate to that. I just want escapism. And I guess everybody's different, you know, in what they want. You know, some people want, you know, very like political music. Some people respond to that. Other people just want, you know, I just want to escape from, you know, my life. And I guess that's their relationship with it. That's their relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do actually have, like, I don't really have that many paintings at home, but that one's like, you know, fairly enigmatic one. This is about 4 years old. And I remember just doing it, and as you can see, the thing I was getting very excited about was just the colours on that, and that was all done with sort of like scraping colour off, and that's what underneath.
Okay.
It just happened just fall into the shape of a person. So probably because I don't know, it reminded me of something. There's an old gallery, the GF Watts Gallery in Compton in Surrey, near Guildford, where I grew up. But it's this arts and crafts things, and it made me think of that, except just a lot more psychedelic. And you know, then it is, I don't know what that figure is, or
Yeah,
who she is. It's just an arresting, striking image, isn't it? And
absolutely. Yeah.
but open enough to lead you think where they're going, who is it, what is it, and it's not just a cop out doing that. I just find them a lot more mysterious and a lot more exciting.
Mm. I guess as well, you know, your kind of interpretation can change as your own kind of life is evolving as well. You know, what you see in it today may not be what you see it in, kind of
Absolutely.
3, 4 years time, which is the exciting part. It's almost like a kind of living document, if you will, something that can, physically it doesn't change shape, but in
Yeah, and you
your
go through
imagination it
fads.
does.
You go through fads of liking things and styles of things, and
Yeah,
if you go back and listen to a lot of the things you were probably listening to at the age of 16,
yeah,
some of it you might still be listening to now, but in a completely different way and think it's brilliant. And some of it you might think it's just absolute shit.
yeah.
Um, but that doesn't negate how exciting it was when you were 16. It was
When you
brilliant
listen to exactly, yeah, yeah, that's really true.
because it did something to you. You related to it in a certain way
Yeah. When
that you don't
I mean,
necessarily relate to.
going back to your childhood when you were a kid and sort of growing up. I mean, what were the kind of standout things that you remember? I've done a lot of this as I've been getting older, sort of thinking back to to try and I guess sort of like when my parents died a couple of years ago of trying to put pieces together that were perhaps sort of unexplained and wondering why I'm the sort of the person that I am now. What were the kind of formative influences for you that you recall?
Um, Christ, a photo came up. I was looking for an old painting, flicking through things, and I'd taken a photograph of a photo of my gran, and I just couldn't even look at it. It's like, oh, fucking hell, that's just going to make this. I can't bear to look at it. You
Really?
know, I was loved her so much, and she lived with us, and she was a painter,
Mm.
self-taught painter, and I think if anything was a formative influence, it was her. She could play sort of like amazing sort of pub piano with no, which just seemed mad to me sitting there trying to learn the piano. And yeah, so for example, she was like a massive influence.
Mm.
And then as a teenager, going to see, there was a brilliant exhibition at the Royal Academy. I got bought in fact this computer sitting on the catalogue. German art in the 20th century was like the first show I went to see that just like as a painting show. It's like, oh my God. And going to see I was an absolutely tiny, we queued up to go and see Carmoon at the British. And all I remember about it is there was some sort of like two-way mirror, but you could just about see security through it and think, oh, that's exciting. And then seeing the mask, and it's like this sort
Sorry,
of
who
weird.
was that, James? You just broke up a little tiny bit.
It was Tutankhamun.
Ah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Oh, and actually, this my mum had used to teach typing, and she borrowed this off someone she was teaching typing to,
Ah,
and it's a book of woodcuts, a story in woodcuts, and I mean, that's so brilliant.
oh
It's
my God.
really fantastically over the top. I remember just thinking, this is some like mad, magical little thing. And I
Wow.
absolutely loved it. And I remember, at O level, I was copying the pictures out of it. But I mean, for the most part, I've got an older brother, and he was like feeding me music like the Velvet Underground and the Stooges and the Stones, and
Yeah.
that was like an escape into your imagination, unlike anything else. Parents would go off shopping or something and just turn up Funhouse full blast. I think this is just this magical experience. It's almost sort of beyond music and the
Yeah.
simplicity of music. It was just felt like this fantastical place you could go to.
Absolutely.
So stuff like that.
I can completely relate to that. I had very kind of, I mean, like I said, I'm an only child, but so it was kind of exploring on my own, I guess. I mean, my folks were, well, my dad was, he sort of played the piano, but his big thing was from a musical perspective was he kind of sang in the bass section of church choirs and things like that. That was he was a great singer. So he listened to a lot of classical, but then kind of things like Louis Armstrong, Nat King Cole, kind of sort of people like that. But I kind of and I started playing the cello when I was a kid, so I was like classically trained, and then my kind of rebellion sort of came with punk. That was, I mean, I was too young to see the first. I'm 57, so I kind of missed that sort of first thing. But so I was a few years later. But when I found that was just like, oh my god, that was just like a life changer, completely changed the game.
I'm 59, and the first two Public Image records, stuff like that. I thought, this is again just like this sounded like this mad, magical, angry place you could go to, and I love The Fall, and all sorts of stuff like that. And I've just felt that I had to get to London somehow and start making music, to be in a band. And I moved to London to go to King's College. I got in to do philosophy, which is an absolute disaster. And I got I lasted a year, and then I was asked to leave, and I was living in a bedsit in Earl's Court, and I'd got to meet all these people, and a friend from school lived over the road, and eventually we started Gallon Drunk after moving around and going to live in North London, and all these shared houses and stuff full of amplifiers. It was just brilliant, with I don't know, it's so exciting making that primal noise.
I mean, that's where like where you kind of made the break and went and did what was exciting you. When you talked about that kind of mystical world that that was on the other side, I felt exactly the same. Like there was you looked at an album cover, the art of the album cover, and I remember it was kind of the really striking ones, which were kind of Killing Joke and Susie and the Banshees. Obviously, like my first love was the Ramones, but the kind of really arresting. I mean, even like the kind of Adam and the Ants, Kings of the Wild Frontier. I mean, that was just like so kind of striking. It just fed into this different world that I was living in, and it was exciting. But you made the step and then went and did it.
I love that Juju record. That's so brilliant.
Oh, the Susie record, yeah,
fantastic. So went and did it, and we were more excited about making the noise than writing the songs, to be honest. But that came across as being this really, really exciting band, just making this incredibly simple sort of noise. I just loved it. So he started playing in 1990, started playing live, and that sort of all took off comparatively quickly, really.
So the kind of obviously the people that you were hanging around with were big influence in in kind of on you and getting that off the ground, and also London as well.
Really, I mean, we were all friends together in the band, all living together, and it was exciting living in London. I mean, we didn't have any money, so we never went out and never really did anything, So I just walk around with a little dictaphone and just make things up, just looking at stuff. And I say it all took off quickly. I mean, it's not like we were. It didn't exactly take off, but people liked it, and Yeah, we've made, like, there's one record, From the Heart of Town by Gallon Drunk, that's really London centric, but and that was quite a conscious decision to do that. And we were recording it in Wapping, which is like that, near the river, in an old sort of basement studio that the Pogues used for everything as well, called
Yeah,
Elephant. And that was so brilliant. You could walk out the door, there was a pub next door, and then if you went in the other direction, the little steps down to the river, you could
yeah,
get onto the river sort of banks. Um, and it was still all quite derelict round there, and an old warehouse building. It was incredibly romantic, and
yeah.
yeah, all of that fed into the music as well. And yeah, it's just, and then we were off touring Europe, went to the States and stuff like that, which was, especially if you didn't have any money whatsoever to, or I don't know if I was even interested in traveling. I was so sort of insular and focused on what we were doing, and then suddenly you're just thrown into the situation where you are going to all over the place.
I was going to say what was sort of motivating you. Was it just the fact of just doing?
Yeah, yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know. I can't really. Yeah, we were. That's just what we ended up doing, and we were really incredibly focused on it. And
Mm,
I don't know. It's such a little insular thing, a band, that
yeah.
everything else. You've got these blinkers on. Everything else suddenly becomes peripheral, and you're just doing this thing.
Mm,
It's just really, really exciting. And just
yeah.
making that noise was such a thrill. Just this, almost the entire thing was an excuse to just have massive noisy endings of just beautiful walls of feedback. I mean, my hearing's just destroyed, but just so beautiful. Like just the most simple setup: a guitar going through a big muff pedal into a Fender Twin, and all that, you just tread on it. And again, it's like I was saying about painting. It's not, you don't really hear yourself in it. It's just this, like just a choir of just noise hitting you in the face, and you
Yeah.
don't even have to touch the instrument. It's just, this is so gorgeous.
And I guess that's kind of immediate, isn't it? Either
Yeah,
talking about what we talked about before is that in rehearsal, playing live, that's like an immediate
it's just
fix, isn't
fantastic.
it?
But you can't stick your head in an amplifier for 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. Unfortunately, I probably would if you could. But so in a way, surprisingly, the painting experience is quite similar to that. You wouldn't think
Yeah,
it was exciting, but it is,
yeah. No,
because you're going off somewhere.
I can appreciate that for sure.
And you might be appreciating it more because you're probably not so drunk as well. But yeah, God, I loved doing that noise, that music. It was such a kick.
and
Unbelievable.
uh, and kind of like experimentation with noise as well.
I don't know, it's almost like just not thinking at all, really.
Yeah,
Just,
that's
I don't know. I was personally, there's this huge noise of the bass. It's just bass drums and maracas. And then I was playing organ and guitar, and it could just reach this really ecstatic point of just the
mm,
most simple chord changes going over this charging noise, and just this big breakers of feedback, and the same sort of like trippy feel you get off listening to something like a Suicide
yeah,
record at full blast, that are just particularly off the organ. It's just, and you talk about church choirs. I was in a cathedral choir when I was young.
mm,
There was one absolutely brilliant moment. The choir master was quite arty, and he one day, so after you have this church service, there's an organ voluntary, so they sometimes get to play something a bit out there. And I can't remember it was a French composer, early 20th century, and it was all written in shapes. And to start it, you just press down, pull out all the stops, press down everything you can with your feet and arms, and then turn the organ on, and it's just like this, like an engine starting. And there's probably about 3 people in the cathedral thinking, "What the fuck is this?" It just sounded so exciting and beautiful.
Yeah.
And yeah, being exposed to stuff like that, and I've just loved just this, the giant major chord over like this roaring minor key sort of noise.
Yeah.
Just sent a shiver down your spine. But yeah, so it was stuff like that with doing Gallon Drunk that I just
really kind of
absolutely loved it. Yeah.
I mean, for me, like your own music, as opposed to kind of playing, say, with kind of PJ Harvey or whoever, but your own music, with Gallon Drunk, your solo stuff, the collaborative stuff, the more sort of ambient.
Yeah.
I mean that whole, even kind of bring it in, when you're playing with Nick Cave with PJ Harvey, just the breadth of styles that you've produced over the years is really wild for me.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
Sorry to interrupt, but your solo album, The Starless Room, is, it's incredible. It really is. That really kind of strikes with my, I guess, kind of classical train. There's the chord changes and the composition is just sort of beautiful. But overall, the styles that you have are like.
It's funny, that Starless Room record, before doing it, I made a playlist, which is still about the only one I listen to. And I just remember calling it Music I Actually Like, and put loads of stuff on it that I actually like. And I was really quite surprised. And, and that sort of fed into that record. And probably as a result of that, I can't listen to it because it sounds too much like me. I think, oh, fucking just turn it off. I can't bear it. Whereas more recently, been, but it's. I really, really, really like the record. I just can't listen to it. And then doing these collaborations with Steve Gullick, who I first met when he was a photographer for The Maker and Enemy, and we've made a couple of albums together that's far more ambient. But again, it's all the same feeling and ideas that I'm bringing to it, combined with what Steve does, except just in a more ambient way. But it is all the same thing, I think.
It's yeah. It sounds, there's a lot of different influences, and perhaps in but like with Steve and with Gallon Drunk, those the other band members are bringing in their own
absolutely
styles and influences, as well. And to me, it kind of shows that, kind of thinking about mindset, that sort of open-mindedness to, that there are perhaps no boundaries.
I think
what could come in
again with playing with the band, to a certain extent, what you bring to it has to fit into the nature of that band. And I was getting really, really stuck with that, or feeling, just concerned about repeating ideas or whatever. So it was either with doing stuff with Steve or much more so suddenly starting painting. It was just like completely new, completely fresh. You could bring anything to it. Subject matter wasn't a problem. Rather than sort of, what am I going to write about? The main thing is obviously just to start writing and then it'll present itself. But that was even quicker with painting. It's like looking for a pattern in a wallpaper, a face or something. It's more like a Rorschach test, just going in there and just starting.
I've sometimes wondered with you know, with maybe more applicable to bands, that what you said about getting stuck, but more about the the longer that the band has been together, the more that there's in listeners' minds or your fans' minds of what that band should be. And I guess it can be difficult to break out. I mean, some bands have never broken out of that mode, like Motorhead never changed. But I don't know. I mean, if you're wanting to evolve as a songwriter, as a sort of musician, then you have this kind of entity that in fans' minds is X.
Yeah. I mean, working on like recently with Polly Harvey, PJ Harvey, a brilliant example of someone who's not constrained by that and just does exactly what she thinks is the next thing that's making her excited about making music.
That's true. Yeah. Yes, yeah, she's a really good example of that. I mean, I could think of a few bands that
sort of focus and work ethic that also rubbed off on me, certainly with painting.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a good point about working with those artists, perhaps in a sort of different capacity. How you change your kind of working style.
Not having any sort of cynicism about taking the stuff seriously or getting it right, like it's not cool. I love the way that she's so completely focused on detail, be it an exit light in the venue that someone should turn off because it's the wrong color with it, just everything. Wow. And that's what makes the whole so her, makes it so exciting and absorbing for people, because you're getting something that's really considered and totally represents the artist's imagination.
It sounds like kind of like the detail sort of really matters, because it's a kind of just a component part of the whole show.
I mean, that can obviously include things like accidental stuff and mistakes, or just knowing what to include. But when it comes to the presentation of it, just doing it really seriously.
I mean, for you, if you take, like a kind of related subject of perfectionism, if you want to call what Polly did sort of perfectionism, but for you, how does are you a perfectionist? Would you say?
I don't know. Is there such a thing as imperfection? I don't know.
Yeah.
I love. I've personally reacted to stuff that with an unfinished sort of edge to it, or a certain looseness that, sometimes a finished painting is a dead painting, and that definitely applies to my stuff, because I wouldn't enjoy looking at it so much, but I love the vibrancy you get off looseness, to look at. There's something, there's something in the gaps, and it's like piss or something like that. You take all that off a record and suddenly it sounds dead.
Yeah, I know when I recently, kind of started doing some graphic design. I mean, this is probably for me, it's probably lack of technical ability or anything like that, but that was the sort of style, that distressed sort of looseness that you talked about. That's what really visually stimulated me, and it was so weird that when I started the album cover that made me start this doing graphic design, I decided to do a short course, was Doggerel by the Pixies, which is very kind of like straight lines, very
Yeah.
clean. And I just saw that and I thought, you know, I just love the black and the red on that. But what ended up stimulating me more was completely different. I mean, virtually the opposite end of the scale. It was really distressed and woolly,
Yeah.
and full of faults and all that kind of stuff. That's what I liked.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Same with me. And I can't really, and so working with wood as well. I've done some collaborations with a friend, Corin Johnston, who's a sculptor.
Mm,
And then I just had to go myself recently, and it's so, so raw, and doing, the way I was doing it was incredibly primitive, but just so exciting. Like
yeah,
those woodcuts in that. I mean, they're beautifully made, but that I've always liked woodcuts because they do seem quite primitive,
yeah.
and they don't necessarily print perfectly. They're always slightly different. All of that stuff is what's exciting about looking at a painting.
I can't remember. I can't remember if I told you this. Early this year, went to India. Went to this small village that where the whole village is basically about block printing. I think I did tell you, didn't I? So these
Yeah,
guys,
yeah,
yeah, basically like in this sort of small, really small room, just doing these, basically kind of carving these wood blocks for the prints, all by hand with these tiny little sort of chisels, and sort of hammers, and this beautiful wood. I think it was rosewood, and it was just incredible watching them. Some of them really, really intricate, others a bit, kind of sort of bigger, but yeah, and clearly, when they stamp it on the fabric, it's not consistent. It
yeah.
can't be,
After
and there's a
all of that, but funny enough,
beauty in that.
by comparison, you're talking about precise work. This is something I made out of wood.
Oh wow,
It's
yeah,
definitely not. I mean, so it's all the lovely
yeah, yeah.
down the sides, and it's a sort of a wolf in sheep's clothing.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love no, I love that. I love that. I think that
I mean,
I
that's
think
really just properly, like, just hammered out. But
yeah.
um, again, it's like going to see that, it all, like that I mentioned right at the start, going to see that German art in the 20th century exhibition as a teenager, and seeing sort of German expressionist painting for the first time, and maybe because it is accessible,
Mm.
in that, it's not, it's not sort of distanced by refinement. It's just so raw and exciting.
I think there's I think there's a kind of a certain. So my partner Saskia, she's doing quite a bit of work herself on sort of decolonization, and
Yeah,
so as part of this, sort of perfectionism sort of comes into it, and how perfection is basically is like a very kind of colonized Western way of dealing with everything in your life. It's like, you need to be, this needs to be perfect, or you can't get this wrong, and things like that. And really, like, as human beings, that's not who we are. We are infallible. We make mistakes. We fuck things up,
yeah,
and we're not always good at everything, but that shouldn't stop us from trying things and trying things out. And it's almost like a fear of getting things wrong that I think for a lot of people stops us.
yeah, or yeah, or just being laughed at.
Yeah, yeah,
That's definitely why I'd like to lock the studio door and get through
yeah.
the appalling stages of a painting in private before finishing it. Because they're, at some point, they're always shit. I mean,
Yeah.
they're bound to be.
How do
It
how do you how do
wouldn't
you
be fun. It wouldn't be exciting if they weren't.
how do you get over that? From that sort of stage, the presenting
Half
the
quite often, like the best. part of a painting. I've heard other people, I've read other people say this as well. Um, sort of get to sort of 5 o'clock and just look at something and think, oh, fuck this, and just do something really quite destructive or bold. And then the whole thing comes to life again and it's just turns a corner and it's probably just the energy you bring to it and it turns into something.
And it just sort of instinctively feels right.
Now is the time to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't work, it's fun to do it. But yeah, there's a you've got to be prepared to lose the painting. You can't just tiptoe around it. Ooh, get this bit right and hang on to your favorite bits. If it's not right, you know it, and the best thing is to make the bold move that might just destroy it. But then it doesn't matter because it's not right, and it takes a while to get used to that. Instead of like desperately wanting it to work, just it's fine if it doesn't. Just let it go, and don't go home and talk to yourself about ruining that picture because you ruined it for a good reason usually.
Yeah. Do you know, I found myself doing this. Like I said, I started playing the cello, so I was doing a bit of. I recorded, playing over it. I'd sort of created the harmonies for this song, and I recorded myself doing it, and I was happy with it for the most part, but there was a little bit where I thought, oh, that note's a little bit dud. It's not quite worked. And I was like beating myself up over it. And I was just like, stop.
Yeah.
Just stop.
If someone else had recorded it and played it to you, you wouldn't even notice.
Well, you notice it.
Think, oh, that's cool of them. They left that slightly out of tune note in.
Yeah. It was so annoying, and I thought you're such a hypocrite. You're going on talking to to sort of musicians about sort of perfectionism and stuff like that, and you're doing exactly the same thing yourself.
Yeah, zooming in on these sort of irrelevant details,
just micro things.
Looking at the whole, yeah, that's definitely the path to madness, isn't it?
It's for sure. But for you, as you've you've kind of gone along, with either sort of music or just kind of generally in life, do you feel yourself taking kind of more or less risks in your life? Or do you feel more comfortable taking risks?
I don't know, really. I generally feel more comfortable about presenting something that I probably wouldn't have previously done.
Yeah.
I don't feel so I don't feel that idea of a constraint of what I should be doing. Maybe you do more when you're younger, I suppose.
Yeah. You feel like you might have more to lose when you're younger. Perhaps.
You maybe feel you have more of a definition of yourself.
Yeah.
When you're younger, that you're after a while you just get prepared because it doesn't reflect you anymore.
Yeah.
You do change, so that frees things up to try other stuff, doesn't it?
I always had I always struggled with that kind of identity thing of who or what. It wasn't so much myself. Well, maybe it was myself, but it was more about kind of like what who people thought I was, and then if I then go and do something different, it's like, well, you're not that. That's not you.
Yeah.
It's like, and it was so frustrating. I used to frustrate the fuck out of me for years that I would be more bothered about what other people thought than.
Oh God. I mean, which is all just talking to yourself, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You don't know what to think of you anyway, so you just imagine what someone else is imagining. I mean, again, that's another path to madness, isn't it?
I remember talking to Cynthia Slay from the Bush Tetras. I think she's like 65 now. And I was talking to her about this, and she just went, "Oh boy, just wait till you get to 65. You do not give a fuck then."
Excellent.
I was like, oh, I want to be there now.
Yeah.
Oh my. So what's so tell us what's coming next with your art, what you've got coming up.
Well, yeah, I've got this show in Oslo in about a month.
Yeah.
Then there'll be a show in Dublin next year, and doing in a group show in Berlin, and then hopefully a solo show in Berlin next year.
Yeah.
Group show in Margate. And yeah, I'm just trying to remember.
Just a lot of stuff. It's
Yeah, just I don't know, just going to the studio, really. I mean, to be honest, just going in there.
yeah.
They don't paint themselves.
Go in there and create.
We've got to get in there. They don't paint over themselves. Yeah, so yeah, it's just wanting to get. I don't know if it's even wanting to get better. I just enjoy doing it.
Just do it, just the act of doing. Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah, just the act of doing is just the that's what kind of gives you joy in life.
Absolutely.
That's the main thing, isn't it?
I don't go to the studio and just sit there looking at them thinking, "Hey, these are great." I just want to do something.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot, just such a kind of fertile imagination, and tapping into that imagination is incredible.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. Is it inherently? Is it incredibly childish, or I don't know? It's just really. It just makes you feel good.
It does,
Really.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting point. Is it childish? What's
Or
the
is that
point of
something
it?
brilliant that you lose after a while? I don't know. It's just I don't know if
Well, I think when you're a child, you kind of just you have that all that kind of curiosity, you have that playfulness, you all those kind of things that get drummed out of you as an adult. And I think there does come a stage in your life where you just like, I want to get back child, my childhood, and just kind of do what comes naturally,
yeah,
almost instinctively, isn't it?
yeah. And it did seem the minute I started doing these tiny pictures locked in my hotel room, they just felt immediate like that, just straight away, like just jumping on a bike on a sunny day or something, or when a season change, you get that funny feeling, like a flashback to a million days like that in your childhood. It was just like that. It's like, God, this is exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
And it destroys anxiety.
Well, more power to you, James. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been great to chat to you.
Yeah, likewise. And yeah, thanks very much for having me on.